Carlotta graduated from the University of Toronto with an Honours B.A. in International Relations and Political Science, where she subsequently was awarded a scholarship under the Canada-China Scholars Exchange Program to study Mandarin Chinese at Yunnan University in China. Carlotta is a co-founder of the Three Sisters Natural Landscapes, an eco-landscaping social enterprise dedicated to creating pollinator-friendly gardens in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. Carlotta is also a co-founder of the Monarch Ultra, an international relay-run documentary conservation project aimed at connecting communities across North America with common goals of earth stewardship and biodiversity conservation. And with that, I will hand things over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to go to my presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to share the Monarch Ultra and everything that we're working on with regards to community resilience. So without further ado, I'll get right into things. And so the Monarch Ultra is a conservation running, ultra running and documentary project. And so we use running as our vehicle for environmental action. Many of the team members are runners or ultra runners. And so we just feel that because we're outdoors and connected to nature, we get to experience it in a really unique way. So this first image that I'm sharing with you is taken in Jackson Park, which is this beautiful green space close to my house. It's about 400 acres of beautiful forest. And this is where I had the idea to launch the Monarch Ultra. The trail that I'm on is the Trans-Canada Trail. It connects Canada from coast to coast to coast. And while I was running on this trail in 2006, I had this idea of following the monarch migration by running its migratory route. And the reason why I had this idea was because that year I noticed that there were only about 6 or 7 monarch butterflies in Jackson Park, and I usually see dozens of them. And the reason for their decline that summer was because of a drought that we were experiencing in Southern Ontario. And you know, with droughts, that means lots of plants die, and so there just didn't seem to be a lot of nectar sources for monarch butterflies. And I was so excited to get this project going and to really experience their migration by running in their shoes. You know, because when you drive or take a bus or a train, you don't experience nature in the same way. And so in 2019, we were ready to launch the project. And so what that meant was, you know, we had spent thousands of hours in planning and coordinating, doing presentations and research and trying to figure out, you know, how we could actually run the migratory route. And many presenters have already talked about not just monarch butterflies and why they're declining. It's all wildlife species. It's due to habitat loss, climate change, pesticide use, disease, deforestation, and invasive plants. Deforestation is mainly occurring in Mexico, where the monarch butterflies overwinter. They overwinter in a really specific area in Mexico in the Sierra Madre Mountains. In the Sierra Madre Mountains, they overwinter in the OML fir trees, as well as pine and cedar trees. And the reason that they overwinter there is because the elevation of these trees, it's about 13,000 feet above sea level. And so it's at a level that they can survive in for 3 months before they begin their northern migration, like back to Canada, although they don't make it all the way. As Heather presented in the last presentation, they live for 9 months and they overwinter in Mexico. And then once the females lay eggs, they go a little bit north, northern Mexico or Texas, and then they die, and then the next generation continues on the journey. These monarch butterflies are called the super monarchs because they have a life cycle of over 9 months, whereas the other monarch butterflies only live for about 1 month. So what does it mean to run the migratory route? It meant that we wanted to bring together a team of relay runners, ultra runners, who could run over 50 kilometers per day. And the reason why we wanted to do an ultra marathon was because the monarch butterflies themselves, they migrate up to 80 kilometers a day. And so we thought, who better to do their migratory route than ultra runners, because they're really used to running such long distances. And so the relay run invited ultra runners to run between 50 and 100 kilometers through Canada, through the United States and Mexico. Although when we got to Mexico, we decided that because of the sun going down at 6 p.m., that we'd only have 80 kilometers of running for those days. This is the route that we created, and it followed the Monarch's migratory route. We started off in Peterborough. We crossed the international border at Michigan, and then we ran through the States, and then we crossed the another international border in Tamaulipas, and then we ran for 2 weeks through Mexico, all the way to the Cerro Pelon Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary, which is in the monarch butterfly biosphere. It's a protected area, and there's 4 monarch butterfly biospheres that are protected in Mexico right now. And so this journey was a journey of 4,300 kilometers. It took us 47 days to complete, and it involved 46 ultra runners. Although when we were also running through some of the communities, sometimes we'd have, hundreds of runners or cyclists even to join us. And so I really like the theme of this year's conference on community resilience, because to me, that's what's at the heart of the Monarch Ultra. Everything that we're trying to do with raising awareness to pollinator decline and to wildlife decline is about communities getting involved. One person can't do it alone. And just like, the monarch migration, millions of monarchs migrate at the same time every fall. And I should mention the migration that we followed was the eastern migration. There's also a western migration, which is much shorter. It starts in British Columbia and ends in California. And that's a totally different migratory route than the one that we followed. So this image here is taken in Mexico, and we had a ultra runner, and she was running 80 kilometers. But then the local baseball team found out, and they decided to run with her. And a local ultra running team also found out, and so suddenly we had, like 80 people running with this one runner. And then behind these runners, you can see all the transport trucks. We have drone footage. There were over 300 transportation trucks that were slowed down while we were running on this day, and they were all honking and and encouraging us to go on. It was a pretty eventful day. And so along with our relay run that we organized, and while we were on the road for those 47 days, we also wanted to involve the communities as much as possible. Because, we're running for monarch conservation, but we know that monarch butterflies are in decline, and they're very close to going extinct. And so to me, it means that communities need to get involved. And there's so many ways, as others have already mentioned, in the actions that we can take. And in Mexico, almost every single community that we ran through was so excited about this international team that was coming from Canada, to protect monarch butterflies. And so many of the communities organized parades for us and celebrations. And what you see on the left, this image, they had painted that in the center square, and it just says, "Welcome to Taranducao." And the mayor was there, of course. And the person standing between us is the Minister of Environment. She came along with us for about 7 days, which is really cool, because you often don't get to meet with ministers, and if you do, it might be for an hour. And in this case, she was with us for a week. And so we have very strong support in Mexico because of this project. And throughout our relay run, you know, we'd get up at 4 a.m. and we'd start our relay at 6 a.m. And depending on how fast the runner was, if they were running 100K, it could take 12 hours or 14 hours. Sometimes the runner was really fast and they did it in 10 hours. But because there was a team of 4, like the support crew, sometimes we would, 2 of the people would stay with the runners to be their support crew, and then 2 of us would also go to schools to make presentations to get the kids involved. And to us, that's another, you know, way of enacting community resilience. These kids get so excited, and then, you know, they commit to planting pollinator gardens, to seed saving, to sharing this information with their parents. So there's just so much that can happen because of a project like the Monarch Ultra. There's a lot of excitement, but then there's also a lot of action. Behind us, all these kids came. This was a school with about 2,000 students, and they filled up this outdoor auditorium. And as I was giving my presentation, I'm also fluent in Spanish, so I was able to speak to lots of folks when I was there. But there were monarch butterflies, you know, flying above us, and so they were just so excited every single time they saw one, they'd say "Monarca, Monarca," and it was very sweet. And this is an image of the last day of the Monarch Ultra Relay Run. After being on the road for 47 days, we got to Macheros, Mexico, which is this small town of about 5,000 people. It's at the foothills of the Cerro Pelon Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary. And the whole town, you know, was there to welcome us. And there was also members of the Biosphere, the World Wildlife Fund in Mexico, students. You can see in this image there were some local dancers that dressed up in monarch butterfly wings, and it was a pretty epic finale. And then, of course, we ran up the mountain to their sanctuary, and we made it was a kind of a funny moment because it took us 47 days to run the route. But we actually arrived 2 days earlier than the monarch butterfly, so we didn't get to see the millions and millions of butterflies that overwinter there. We saw lots, but not as many as we would have seen had we been 2 days later. And so in doing all this work, you know, I did a lot of the research and the partnership building and the planning. And I also understood that in order to do something like this, we had to partner with conservation organizations as well as municipalities. And so the last 4 years, I've been working on making these connections and how we can work together and support each other. And so these are just some of the organizations that we partnered with in 2019, as well as in the last couple of years. While we were on the road, we had about 30,000 people following us on social media. And so we were able to amplify our message even more. We also had about 70 international interviews on television, radio, and print media. There were about 30 receptions held for the Monarch Ultra when we'd run through these communities. In total, we ran through 430 communities. So it was nonstop work. And, you know, at the end of the relay run, we talked about doing this every 2 years because of what we saw. And in this image here, this is a large scale agricultural production. And this is in the United States, in Indiana. We saw so much of this in the United States, and, you know, they grow corn, they grow cotton and soybean. And you often don't see any sort of corridors or, you know, with wildflowers. And so we knew that we had to keep doing this work and spreading the message and running for monarch butterflies. And so then in 2021, we were going to run to Mexico again, but then COVID happened, the pandemic happened. So we decided to stay in Ontario and organize another relay run. And so this one was a 21-day relay run with the same idea. And we ran along the great Lake Erie, and we turned around and ran up to Barrie. It took us 21 days, and it was another great effort. It just made it really hard because of the pandemic, so we didn't get to have that much attention to talk about why this was important, but we were still inspired by the people that we met along the way. This was the launch event in Peterborough. We had some beautiful Monarch stilt performers who came out. I'm not sure if I have much time left. Let me just see. Maybe I do. Okay. And so I'll just quickly go through some of the images. This is in London, right by the water. We just had some folks come out and support us and cheer on the runners. We also, as much as possible, try to get schools involved. And so the Milwaukee Spanish Immersion School held their own little mini Monarch Ultra while our relay runs are happening. They also got some grants to build pollinator gardens. And so it's just getting all the kids and youth involved in environmental action and monarch conservation. And this is the image of the last day when we landed in Barrie. We had some counselors there and the World Wildlife Fund and some monarch supporters. So a lot of fun after a long journey, a second long journey. Each event that we organize, we fundraise either for the monarch butterfly sanctuaries, monarch conservation organizations, and in this case, we fundraised for, in 2021, we fundraised for Camp Kawartha, and we raised $11,000. And so all the money goes towards our nature education programming. You know, to us, that's just as important to raise funds for the organizations that are doing really great work.
Just have about a minute left, Carlotta.
Okay. And then last fall, I was invited to attend the International Monarch Butterfly Festival in Zitácuaro, Mexico. Zitácuaro is also at the foothills of the Monarch Sanctuary. And so they invited our team to come down and do presentations, and they named us Monarch ambassadors, which was really neat. This city has about 160,000 people, and I would say about 100,000 people came out to their events. It was a 3-day event. They really know how to put on festivals, and I'm you know, coming back from that with lots of ideas for what to do in Peterborough and beyond. We also, this is my 3rd time climbing the sanctuary. This time I was with Biosphere Reserve protectors. They wanted to show us how much illegal logging is being done in the sanctuaries and what we can do about it. So I'm not going to have time to talk about that in this presentation, but I am going to be focusing this year, 2023, on raising funds to reforest the sanctuaries. And this is what the sanctuary looks like. I don't know if you can see really closely, but there's millions upon millions of monarch butterflies all roosting together. It is one of the most incredible sights you'll ever witness, and the experience is like no other. And so I hope, you know, you get a chance to visit Mexico to see the sanctuaries. And then these are my contact details. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook for Monarch Ultra, and there's our website. And I'm open to questions if there's time. Thank you.
For that really great presentation. It was really, really interesting to learn more about the Monarch Ultra and this really great initiative you've got planned. It's so important to get people involved, especially younger people involved in conservation. It makes a huge difference. We do have time for a question in the Q&A right now. So John Foster is asking, how do you disseminate the information about monarch plants along the Monarch Ultra?
We've worked with, I think I shared a conservation slide, and so the David Suzuki Foundation and the World Wildlife Fund and other organizations, they send me boxes of information. And so when we're on the route, we give them to all the schools, all the different communities, any sort of presentations that I do, I have that information. When we're in Canada, we harvest and collect milkweed seeds, or I should say in Ontario. And so we hand those seeds out as well. We don't bring them when we cross the border, of course. There's different species of milkweed that monarch butterflies use as their host plant in the States. But as much as possible, yeah, we're sharing seeds and information along the way. to anyone that we meet.
Perfect. Great. So we're gonna have to